Long ago, in a time before roads had names and villages trusted routine more than reason, there lived a man known as Farid. Now, Farid wasn't rich. He didn't own vestlands or chests of gold. But he owned something far more valuable in that village, a strong, healthy horse. That horse worked harder than most people. It carried heavy loads, pulled carts through mud and dust, and helped Farid survive every changing season. Farid also had 4 sons. He loved them deeply, with all his heart. But love, as it turns out, doesn't always teach wisdom, because while the sons were grown in age, their thinking remained unfinished. They weren't cruel men. They weren't lazy. They were simply the kind of men who acted long before they thought, and they believed that confidence was the same thing as intelligence. The whole village knew it, and in his quiet heart, Farid knew it too. One silent winter morning, Farid passed away. The house, once filled with his presence, fell still. Outside, the horse stood tied to a post, completely unaware that its owner would never return. Inside, the 4 brothers stood round their father's body. They mourned, but only briefly. Then, their attention shifted. Their eyes all landed on the horse. "The horse cannot belong to just one of us," the eldest said, his voice serious and solemn. "It must be divided equally." The others nodded in agreement. Fairness sounded wise, after all. "But how do we divide it?" the youngest asked, looking puzzled. The eldest brother thought for a moment, a proud look spreading across his face. "Each of us," he declared, "takes one leg." They all smiled. To them, it sounded perfectly logical. But as they stood there, staring at the animal, another problem appeared. What about the rest of the horse? The body, the head, the tail. They started to argue, pointing and debating, drawing imaginary cuts in the air. That's when a traveler, passing by on the road, stopped to watch the strange spectacle. "Why are you arguing with a horse?" he asked politely. The brothers explained their brilliant plan. The traveler paused, a gentle look in his eyes. Then he said, "Why not just sell the horse and divide the money?" Silence. 4 minds, all processing one simple, elegant idea. Then, realization hit them like a flash of lightning. "Yes," the eldest shouted. "That is true wisdom." They thanked the traveler as if he were a prophet sent from the heavens. And that very same day, they untied the horse and began their long walk toward the city to sell it. By sunset, they were completely exhausted. The road led them through a dense, dark forest, and night arrived much faster than they had expected. They decided to rest for the night under the tall, ancient trees, tying the horse to a branch nearby. Within minutes, all 4 brothers were fast asleep. It was a deep, careless sleep, the kind that announces itself with loud, rumbling snores. Later that night, another man passed through the forest. His steps were light, almost silent. His eyes were sharp, scanning the darkness. He was a thief. He noticed the valuable horse first. Then, he saw the 4 sleeping men. Slowly, silently, he crept forward and tied the rope from the tree and disappeared back into the darkness, taking the horse with him. At dawn, the youngest brother was the first to wake up. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and looked round. Then he froze. "The horse is gone," he yelled. The others woke up in a state of confusion. The 3rd brother just stretched and said calmly, "Relax." "It was probably Ramzan who took it." "Who is Ramzan?" the youngest asked, bewildered. "Just someone," he replied, closing his eyes again. "We'll deal with it later." And with that, they all went back to sleep. When morning finally came for good, there was still no horse. So they began to search the area. Soon they noticed tracks on the ground. The second brother knelt down to examine them closely. "These are camel tracks," he announced. The eldest nodded sagely. "It's a male camel," the third brother added with even more confidence, "and it's blind in one eye." The youngest chimed in, concluding their brilliant analysis, "and it broke its rope to escape." They all felt incredibly proud of their powers of observation. Just then, a worried-looking man came rushing toward them. "Have you seen my camel?" he asked, his voice full of anxiety. The brothers, puffed up with pride, answered together. It was a male. It was one-eyed, and it escaped by breaking its rope. The man gasped. "That's exactly right. Where is it? Where did you see it?" The brothers replied calmly. "We didn't see any camel." The man just stared at them, his expression shifting from relief to deep suspicion. "You know everything about my camel, yet you say you haven't seen it." His eyes narrowed. "You're coming with me," he said, his voice firm. "The king will decide this." As they walked toward the city, they came across a new set of footprints on the path. The eldest brother spoke up. "A woman passed here. She left in anger," added the second. "And she's pregnant," said the third. A few moments later, a man came running from the opposite direction. "My wife is missing," he cried out. "Did you see her?" the brothers replied. "She was angry. She's expecting a child, and she left during the night." The man turned pale. "Where is she?" he demanded. "We didn't see her," the brothers replied in unison. The man clenched his fists. "You're coming to the king, too." The king's court was already crowded when the group arrived. Merchants were arguing over taxes. Soldiers stood as still as statues, and at the center of it all sat the king calm, watchful and completely unreadable. One by one, the accusations were spoken. First, the camel owner stepped forward. "These four men," he said, pointing, "describe my missing camel perfectly. Its gender, its injury, how it escaped." Yet they deny ever seeing it. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Then the husband spoke. "My wife disappeared in the night." These men knew she was angry. They knew she was expecting a child. And still, they claim they're innocent. The court buzzed even louder. Finally, the brothers stepped forward. The eldest spoke with unwavering confidence. "Your Majesty, we are innocent." The king raised an eyebrow. "Innocent men do not usually know so much," he said dryly. The youngest brother leaned forward, his chest puffed out proudly. "That is because we possess special knowledge." The room fell silent. "Explain," said the king. "We know things without seeing them," the eldest continued. "Truth simply reveals itself to us." The king studied them for a long moment. Then, a slow smile spread across his face. "Bring me a box," the king ordered. A simple wooden box was brought and placed before the brothers. It was sealed shut. The king spoke calmly. "Tell me what is inside." The brothers looked at one another. A nervous silence hung in the air. The eldest cleared his throat. "It is round." The second brother nodded quickly. "And it has a crown on its head." The third hesitated, but the youngest blurted out, "It's a pomegranate." The king opened the box. Gasps echoed across the hall. It was a pomegranate. The king leaned back in his throne. "Very well," he said. I accept your claim." He then turned to the thief, Ramson. "Return the value of the stolen horse," Ramson protested. But the king silenced him with a wave. Then he looked at the others. "You may all leave. Go find your own losses." The brothers walked out of the court like conquering heroes. Their heads were held high, their chests puffed out with pride. They truly believed they were chosen, gifted men. With the money they received, they went straight to the market. But they didn't buy another horse. They bought goats. Many, many goats. Goats that bleated loudly and pulled in every possible direction. As they left the city, the brothers felt important. "We are gifted," one said. "We are feared," said another. "We are wise," the youngest concluded. None of them even noticed that the goats were already starting to pull their ropes apart. By the afternoon, the heat had slowed them down. A cool, shady forest appeared ahead. It promised shade, silence, and comfort. They lay down under a massive tree and, once again, sleep took them. The youngest woke first. He looked up. A goat had somehow climbed into the tree. Below, the other goats were gathered, moving their mouths as if they were whispering to each other. His heart began to race. "They're planning something," he whispered urgently, waking his brothers. They woke in a blind panic. "They're turning against us," one of them shouted. Fear completely took over reason. They scrambled to their feet and ran, leaving all the goats behind. One goat started to follow them. In his terror, one of the brothers picked up a stone and threw it. The goat fell. They didn't even look back. Far from the forest, they finally stopped, breathing hard. "We should count ourselves to make sure we're all here," said the eldest. He pointed and counted. 1, 2, 3. His face went pale. "Where is the fourth one?" Each brother took a turn counting. And each one forgot to count himself. Every count ended the same way. "One of us is missing." They began to cry, convinced they had lost a brother. That's when a rider on a horse passed by. He listened to their tale of woe and smiled. "May I help you?" he asked. "If you can fix this," the brothers wailed, "we will serve you for the rest of our lives." The rider calmly counted for them. 1.3. 4. The brothers stared. Joy instantly replaced their sorrow. "You are a genius," they shouted together. And just like that, they became servants. The rider brought the brothers to his home, a simple, peaceful house just outside the city. "You promised to serve," he said calmly. "So I will give you work." He gave each brother a specific duty. To the eldest, he said, "Care for my elderly mother. Make sure not a single fly touches her." To the second, "Feed the oxen." To the third, "Harvest the crops in the field." And to the youngest, "Watch over the goats and sheep." Each brother believed his task was simple. And each brother was completely wrong. The eldest sat beside the old woman with a stick in his hand. He watched her closely. A fly landed on her forehead. He struck it. The woman cried out in pain. The brother just nodded. "Good. Mission accomplished." Another fly landed. Another strike. The woman's cries grew weaker. The brother remained calm, believing her pain was a sign of progress. Eventually, the woman stopped moving altogether. He covered her gently. "She's just resting," he said to himself proudly. Meanwhile, the second brother stared at the oxen. "They eat way too much," he muttered. After thinking long and hard, he found a solution. He killed them. Then he placed their heads in the feeding trough. There, he said with satisfaction, "Now they'll eat forever." In the field, the third brother examined the ripe crops. This was too much work. It would take too long. So, he lit a fire. As ash rained down on the blackened earth, he smiled. "Well done, and the youngest." He watched the goats and sheep. Soon, a pack of hungry wild dogs appeared. The dogs attacked the flock. The brother just nodded peacefully. "Well, everyone has to eat," he reasoned. At sunset, the rider returned. He went to his mother's room and found only silence. He uncovered her face, blood, stillness. His knees weakened. Then he went outside and saw the dead oxen. Then the field of ashes. Then the empty animal pens. He stood frozen for a long, long time. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet and strained. "You are all free to leave," he said. "But first, you have one last task. Go to the cemetery," he told them, "and dig a grave as deep as an ear." The brothers nodded. At the cemetery, one of them placed his ear on the ground. "This is deep enough," he announced. They quickly returned. The rider followed them back and saw the shallow hole. Anger finally broke through his calm. "That's not what I meant. Go and bring my mother's body." On the way to the house, they were so clumsy that they dropped the body and didn't even notice. A little later, they found an old woman gathering firewood. They assumed it must be her. They grabbed her, dragged her back to the rider, and presented her. The rider screamed. He apologized profusely to the terrified woman, and then went to bury his real mother himself. Then he turned to the brothers. "Go," he said, "and never return." The four brothers walked away, hungry, alone, and still utterly confused. They believed the world was simply unfair. They never understood their own foolishness. Some people think that knowing a few small things makes them wise. But wisdom isn't about guessing what's in a box. It's about understanding the world around you, and that was a lesson the four brothers never, ever learned. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.